Hey everyone, welcome. This title of this show is called Music of the Mind, and I am Rudy Caseres, your host. We're going to be talking about the impact that music, in all various forms and all its lovely iterations and genres, has an effect on our mental health. And I've got a great panel of amazing musicians and just all around amazing people. So without further ado, let's get into the swing of things. First off, let's bring up everyone. Just do a quick wave, and then we'll go one by one, starting with Janine, and we'll do intros. So, without further ado, tell the whole world, the whole everyone everyone, just talk. Who's Janine Hoff?
Hi, Rudy. I'm Janine Hoff. I am the founder of Where is the Sunshine? Rudy and I have done this. I think this is the millionth time we've done some panel in some shape or form or another. I love talking about music. I am a therapist, but long before I went into this field, I was a musician and I have a degree in music, and I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing music far longer than I have done this whole therapy thing. And I'm also a peer with lived experience. And so I use the music and I use my experiences as a peer and now as a therapist, and I kind of all mishmash them together and enjoy helping people like us and helping them to find, a life worth living and ways to feel better about themselves and the world around them.
Yeah, what is your instrument of choice?
So actually, I have two instruments. I have a degree in voice. I actually have a music theater degree, so I do the acting and the singing. And I'm a classically trained opera singer, Rudy. I don't think you knew that.
I did know
I know,
that.
and I look like such an opera singer. I get it. And I'm also a pianist. I had started originally as an accompanist, a piano accompanying major in college, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to play for people. I want to be out there in the spotlight. Now I'm just like, yeah, I'd rather just be in my house singing so I do a lot of singing in the car and a lot of singing in the kitchen. I'm a
Cool.
very good kitchen singer.
Me too. Just don't tell anyone else that. So I think what I'm going to do is for the first person to talk while on mute has to do a solo. How about that? Lay down the challenge. But we'll get to that later. Let's get on to our next guest. Tell everyone again. I know this is like your millionth time on here. Who is Sarah Jickling?
Hi, I'm Sarah Jickling. I am a mental health advocate with lived experience, and also I'm a musician. I'm a singer-songwriter, and um, I'll say my instrument of choice. I spent like the first 20 years of my life doing classical piano, and then I was in a rock band, and now I really like singing, and I think singing is actually, I don't know, singing is something that brings me a lot of joy. So now I would say I'm a singer.
What are you, a soprano or a
I'm
mezzo?
an alto,
Also,
mezzo alto, but
mezzo
I can
alto.
I can sing low.
And I've heard that too. I've got a couple of your
Yeah.
albums, so kudos to you. Okay, so let's get on to our next guest again, who is Dean de Benedictus.
Hello, Dean Benedictus. Dean, it has a name that even he gets tongue-tied saying still to this day. I am a longtime recording artist. Um, I won't date myself by giving the exact year, but it's been all my life. I've been a producer, electronic musician is what I'm more known for. But I've been even longer than that, a pianist and a jazz musician and a progressive musician in general. Um, so I have numerous projects under different handles and um, different labels internationally, and just kind of your classic uh, underground alternative avant um, recording artist in a sense.
Yeah, and you also you had an album come out recently too. Make sure you get that in.
Yes, probably the most recent album, right, was a few weeks ago. It's on a British label called DIN Records. It's called Astray Ending, and it's electronic music, kind of, you know, different for me. And it was my first release in quite a while, so it kind of mixed a bunch of I finally just mixed it all together. It's just the suspense of all of my musical endeavors was too great. It all just ended up in there.
Yes. And how many different instruments do you play?
Um, oh, you're gonna make me count now. Let's see. Um, so guitar and piano, flute, like different forms of flute, concert flute, as well as Mayan style flutes, and most things Mesoamerican style instruments. I don't want to say I specialize in them. I just enjoy the most. And then oh God, what else? Trumpet, um, lots of percussion of all types, and electronic instruments, which is, I know it's hard to wrap one's head around usually, but it is kind of its own instrument, electronic um,
Yeah.
instrumentation.
Well, it sounds like if I don't cut you off right now, like you could go on for the whole hours.
Got
You
it.
also have a great singing voice as well, so make sure to get that in. And we'll circle back to you, Dean, of course. But we have a new challenger has arrived for the first time, making their debut. Tell the whole world who is Kev G. Moore.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kev. I am a artist and singer-songwriter and mental health advocate. I'm a certified peer specialist, and I used to work for several different organizations. Now I work with an organization mostly called Tune Foolery, which is a Boston-based organization of over 60 musicians, and we go around and perform. Pre-COVID, we were doing about 360 shows a year. It's slowed down a bit since then, but we play at all the shelters, all the psych units, and the group homes in the area, as well as any type of mental health advocacy event. And then I go around and tell my story um, using regular speech and my music that I've written along the way. I've been early diagnosis, and I began music when I was young, and I've been writing music about it ever since. So.
Great. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I love the shirt too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And so we'll definitely have more time to get acquainted. Thank you so much for because we have
Thank
just
you.
meeting for the
Yeah.
first time right now. So thank you for taking a risk on me.
Thanks for
So
having me. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So hang tight and we'll circle back soon. Also making their debut, tell the whole world who is Kevin Early Bird Early.
Hello, I'm Kevin Earlybird Early. I'm a rapper, mental health advocate, and a peer support specialist. I believe I met Rudy through This Is My Brave, which I was on a board member, and I was an original castmate of This Is My Brave. And last year I had the pleasure of some of my music and my story was featured in a Ken Burns produced documentary called Hiding in Plain Sight, which was aired on PBS. So I got to create some music that ended up being used in the closing credits of each episode. And I just dropped a new album that came out on streaming services today. It's called Riddles, Romance, and Rainbows.
Nice.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. It's great to finally work with you again. I think the last time was for This Is My Brave Chat Live, like July 4th, 2018. So,
That's like before the pandemic, yeah.
oh yeah, a long time ago. Like it feels like a past life. So I'm glad we're finally at it again. And you definitely have quite the story, quite the journey that is still continuing to grow. So congrats on the new album. Congrats, congrats,
Thank you.
congrats. And without, I think that is the whole band. Let's bring it all up again. Here is our rogues gallery of musicians, auteurs, amazing mental health advocates all around. And just thank you, all of you, for being on this panel. And again, I'm Rudy Caseres. I've been hosting these panels. I relaunched this YouTube channel first week of January, so I'm excited to talk about music, something that I have no talent in whatsoever. So I'm going to kind of take a backseat. We've got a loaded panel, so they're going to do most of the heavy lifting anyway. But if you're watching this live, please let us know that you're here. Let us know that you care by commenting, asking questions, just saying hello. It's all good. So let's get right into it. And we have a question here. And that question is pretty basic. So leaving it kind of wide open, and then we'll get more into the nitty gritty as time goes on. How does music affect your mental health? Again, the way we'll do this is Janine, Sarah, Dean, Kevin, and just says we have a large panel and we want to get here at the top of the hour. Just try to be mindful of your time when answering each question. So take it away, Janine.
I had to make sure I unclicked that unmute button really fast. You know, for me, it's almost like music has been a part of my life always, and it's a part of most people's lives in some way, shape, or form. I don't remember a day in my life without music, and a life without music is a life that I don't want to live. Right. I love having it surround me. I've noticed I have my own children and I work with a lot of kids, and music is not as essential in their lives now as it was to many of us growing up, whether it was 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, because we had radio. And so it was always on. People had records. Now with streaming, they don't really pay it as much attention. And to me, I think it's such a vital part of our existence. Without music, I probably wouldn't be here. It is so integral in my life. It allows me to escape, it allows me to focus. It's how I get to work every day and how I get home. I don't ever drive without music playing in the background. I'm never not singing along. If anyone drives up next to me in a car, they will see me singing. I look like I'm screaming, shouting from the top of my lungs, having a massive argument, but it's me rocking out in my car. And it's so healing. It's so cathartic, and it's fun. And I think that's like the most important part. It adds fun back into our lives. It's not just healing in terms of allowing us to cry or allowing us to have a deeper level of emotional connection with, sadness or with joy. It allows us to laugh. It allows us to have a good time. And I mean, that's why you have music at parties, right? You go to a party and there's no music, you kind of hear all the background noise and such. But with the music, it makes people dance. It makes people kind of bop along. It makes people say, "Oh, I remember that song. Oh, do you remember?" Then it has that ability to say, "Hey, remember 30 years ago we were rocking out to that song." And it sounds like, wow, the 90s were 30 years ago, but they really were. I remember where I was the first time I heard Nirvana, right? And I was like, wow, this is a game changer. And still I hear a song and I am, Janine back in the 1990s with, my shaved hair and a nose ring and all of that. And I was like, those were good times. And so, I mean, it's just who I am. It's in my fiber. It's part of my molecular structure, I guess, at this point.
I'm glad that you mentioned singing in the car and how that brings you joy. Now, hypothetically, how would that sound like?
Oh, Rudy, you thought you were going to trap me. Well, you know what? It's funny because I am a classically trained opera singer, but I sing a lot of hip hop. I sing a lot of, old school, like 80s and 70s music. I sing a lot of rock music. I sing a lot of Stevie Nicks. I will sing Carly Simon, all of that. Like there's no stone unturned when it comes to music. I will sing Mary J. Blige. I'll sing Rihanna. It's just anything. Also, I will rap. I'm a very good rapper when it comes to like Notorious B.I.G. You will see like 1990s Brooklyn Girl come out when Notorious B.I.G. But I will refrain from making people run away from this channel.
Well, maybe you and Kevin Early can do a rap collab in the future. He's a rapper too, so that's like the Notorious B.I.G. Mary J. Blige duo. So we can get that going, or you can be Little Kim. So let's move on before we completely devolve. Sarah, how does music affect your mental health?
Well, this is, as you know, something that I think about a lot. And I think there's two questions. How does music affect your mental health, and how does being a musician affect your mental health? So I don't know if we're going to get into that later, probably, but being, but music in general, I think it's kind of like smell, just like in general, like when you smell something and you're like, oh, like just takes me away for a moment, makes it was tied closely to memory, like what Janine was saying. When you hear a song and you're like, whoa, it takes me back to that moment. Or you hear a song for the first time and you're like, I feel so connected to this song and I love it so much. It really just like triggers something that like goes past part of our brain and goes right to the like, I don't know enough about brains, but like it goes past the part where we analyze and think, and then it just really hits us. Um, I think that music can be good for your mental health and can be dangerous for your mental health. When I started, like seeing bands live and stuff, like, oh my God, I was like, this is amazing. I feel so good. Like my friends were describing why they knew they believed in God. Sorry for any offend, don't offend any religious people, but I was like, I feel that at a concert. So like, I don't know. But at the same time, like also there have been songs that have like brought me down and like kept me down and like have led to like suicide attempts. So like I think that like music is just like another sense, and it can be sort of used for good or bad depending on the song. It's very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, like there's been a lot of musicians throughout time who have just used music to insult certain groups, to be misogynist, racist, sexist, and of course, a lot of stuff from like say 50s, 60s, like pretty much up until very recently, like just does not age very well. And so we constantly have to evolve and be more inclusive and understand that certain things might have been okay back then, but doesn't necessarily make them okay now. And another complicated thing is that say you like the song from your childhood and then you look back in the lyrics and it's like, oh my God, that's like super offensive now. And it's hard to just like, oh, I'm gonna like throw that album in the trash or whatever. I'm gonna cancel that person, I'm never gonna listen to them again because they just have such a connection with you. Like, how do you deal with that?
I think that something like, so one of the really important things is that like a lot of music, so it's is music good for your mental health? Potentially yes. Is being a musician good for your mental health? Potentially no. I'll get into it more, but I would say there's a lot of very unwell people in the in the music industry who are not getting help and who are just being told like that's what it's like to be a musician. And for example, there was a band that I listened to. They were called Frightened Rabbit. The lead singer has since died from suicide, and he wrote about his suicidal ideations. And some of my first suicidal ideations were coming from when I was listening to his songs, which he was literally just, they were just a cry for help. And so like, because it can take you to places like so deeply, I feel like I was already very, very down, and like just listening to this album over and over again was kind of like pulling me even down further with this man who was clearly struggling because he's no longer with us.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack there. And just it goes to show that the whole tortured artist thing, it's real. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but sadly, that's just the way that the industry is set up. And we'll get more into the music industry and its troubles and evils and what have you. But yes, it is as great as music can be. Like if there is a dark side to it, so it's important to mention that as well. But let's try to lift the mood up with my favorite person to lift moods, Dean De Benedictis. How does music affect your mental health?
That was sarcasm, by the way, in case anybody missed that. And a quick note I'd like to make is that I am also very much a mental health advocate. Um, and well, so my adventure, my journey with music throughout the years has seemed. I'm definitely relating a lot to some of the last things that Sarah was mentioning, because it's hard for me to tell what aspect of music, what exactly about music has been so oppressive to me as a human being. I only know that it has been. And this isn't somebody who's just already suffering a lot, and so he's just trying to cry for help through the music, which I totally sympathize with musicians who, that's what's happening with them, and that seems to be the way things are unfolding for them. With me, it's different. It's that the music actually has caused a lot of the mental health issues that I've had. Um, uh, and yet, so in a way, you could separate the musician from the music lover in me. And so the music lover still, feels somewhat passionate about these things. And like Janine was saying, it's still ever present. I kind of just always have to have it on if I'm having trouble focusing at moments like that. Whereas other times I'm better with silence. But I'm still a music lover somehow through all these years. And as a musician, I still love being that to a great degree. It still keeps me in the game, but I've lost a lot of that as well, and it's become a lot more complicated, the musician aspect of my life, because I have really suffered internally as a result. And I want to be able to tie that to only the music business. I really do. But it just seems to be so much more complicated of a thing than that, the arts, that it's really, it almost seems like a built-in factor with the way that the arts are structured, that it's almost unavoidable. We could try to devise systems for giving people credit where credit is due more, or paying them more based on merits. But in the end, it's this hugely subjective, esoteric beast that encompasses the surface of the planet. And it always has been. And it's hard for me to see any one or two or a few systems getting us out of that inherent dilemma. And so in a way, it's like the arts and sciences aren't grouped together for no reason. They're just this completely open-ended, anything goes, limitless possibility room without a roof. And all the other tasks are cut and dry by comparison. And that's why sometimes I think it's best to just reach for sanity by just doing manual labor and just things that can help us work with our hands, and things that we know won't confuse us, to try to help remedy just this craziness that we have to experience internally by taking on this profession.
Right on, right on, right on. Thank you, Dean. What say you, Kev?
For me, music, when I was a child and dealing with ongoing trauma and symptoms of the various disorders that I have, I felt very alone. I called it terminal uniqueness. I thought I was so alone that it was going to kill me. And I found relief in that in music. And at the time, it was 70s singer-songwriters and all that emotional, sad music. And I found I found that I wasn't, so alone in my feelings. As soon as I got a guitar at age 13 and someone showed me some chords, I started writing songs. I didn't learn other people's songs, I just wrote my own, because it was an avenue for me to express what was going on in my life in ways other than just coming out and saying it. I would write a song that was a metaphor for some crazy story, but it was really me saying, hey, look at my life, it's crazy and I need help. Later in life, I lived a long time homeless, and music was what fed me, just busking on the subways. today, I use music most throughout my day to adjust my mood. If my mood is, I wake up triggered, I put on some relaxing but slightly upbeat music. I don't want to put anything too happy and annoying, you know. Um, and if I'm hyper and kind of hypomanic, I'll put on some relaxing piano jazz. Every day, there's music filtering throughout here that's always just adjusting my mood up and down.
Right on, right on. Again, great to hear from you, and thank you for sharing your experience. And I want to hear from Kevin now.
All right. Well, the thing about going fifth is listening to everyone else, and they're kind of taking the points of what I wanted to say. So I've heard a lot of things said that I totally agree with 100%. And I'll basically say that music to me is like magic. And if you look at literature and you look at history, there's stories of, apparently Lucifer was a magician, and people learning how to play the banjo by going to the crossroads and exchanging their soul. So there's a lot of history, and the magical properties of music, whether it's good or evil that you're performing the music for. But another thing I think about, I have a friend who says that the first art is cooking, and cooking is the first art. But I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg thing, but I think of a heartbeat as the original drum. And I don't know if we were fed before we had a heartbeat, or we had a heartbeat before we were fed. I don't know what came first, but that drum beat of the heart being the original drum really resonates with me, and it centers me. And a lot of the music I listen to does have drums in it. And there's something about music that I can't imagine living my life without. It's like breathing.
Now, was there a specific moment in your life where you came to that realization?
For me, it was probably, I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I got a rap cassette, a gift for Christmas, and I put it in my Walkman when people had Walkman, and I listened to it nonstop, and I transcribed to the best of my ability all the lyrics on paper, and I just knew it. I don't know what it was, but it was just something about the music was just compelling to me, and it just took up all my time and energy into listening and trying to understand, and eventually making my own music.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so let's bring it back now and move on to our next topic. I wanted to talk about the music industry, and obviously, I know Janine sadly does not have much experience in that field, so I have a question just for her, which I'll get back to once I ask our more. I don't want to say more seasoned musician because you have plenty of experience yourself, Janine, but I guess seasoned in the music industry. So that question is boop boop boop. Pretty simple. What are some challenges of working in the music industry while also battling mental health issues? We'll hear from Sarah, Dean, Kev, and then Kevin, and let's start picking up the pace. So let's go to Sarah.
Okay, so there's a couple things. Apologies, my Alexa is reminding me that I should have eaten lunch. That's the only way I can remember. But there's so the music industry is straight up not a good place for your mental health, and I'll tell you why. There's a bunch of reasons, but one of the main reasons for me at the beginning was that people see mental illness as a necessity for genius and music inspiration and stuff. So when I started writing songs, I wasn't super unwell, but they were coming out of me. I was mostly experiencing anxiety and stuff like that. And then when I started experiencing the first symptoms of bipolar disorder, I just felt like I was like, when I was in hypomania, like I was just vomiting out songs, and like I was like, what? This is people really liked them. And I started doing well. And literally, like in many situations, people were like, I don't know what's wrong with your brain, but it's working, like they're like, this is amazing, good job. And that was directly coming from like an illness that was making me like the most dangerous habit was probably the suicide attempts and stuff. So um, I think that I got that so much, and so many people saying, "Oh, well, think of all these musicians like who are so famous and so tortured, and like look at all the beautiful stuff they brought to us." And like I've even heard people say, like Kurt Cobain was like an angel who like came down and gave us his music, and then he was taken back. And like, what? No, he could have lived longer and wrote more songs, and maybe they would have been amazing. And also, it doesn't matter. He could have been like a good dad.
Right.
We're not just here to like deliver works of genius at any risk, at any cost. But I also now no longer believe that you do have to be unwell to write. But for a very long time, I did think that. And there's a lot of very famous people who agree that you have to be unwell in order to make beautiful art. And so for so long, I resisted treatment. People were like, "You have bipolar disorder," and then I other people were like, "That's not a real thing. It's the government trying to bring you down." Of course, I was gonna say I prefer for it to not be a real thing, and I just have to eat right and just like channel my music. A lot of people were like, "Well, just like ride the waves, and when you're writing songs, you're good, and then when you're feeling down, like, just like just wait until you feel good again." And so many people were telling me not to get help because whatever was happening was working specifically for the music industry. And I remember even going to a songwriting workshop with a fairly famous Canadian songwriter. And he was like, his whole thing was like, I drink a bunch of beer and then I write songs. And I was like, okay, so I think that like being hypomanic is very similar to like doing drugs or drinking alcohol. And there's a reason why like if people don't have those natural sort of ups and downs and stuff, people can induce them. And that's partially because creating art is so difficult because you have like an internal critic that's going to tell you this is terrible, this is terrible. Also, people externally, this is terrible, this is terrible. So if you're in a place like, for example, hypomania, where you have your brain saying this is amazing, even if it's not amazing, you're going to make so much stuff. You're just going to put it all out there. And so then when I finally, was always like, okay, I was at the hospital in the emergency room, getting diagnosed with bipolar disorder for the 4th time. And I was like, okay, I accept, I will get treatment. And the doctor said, so a lot of people feel like they lose their creativity when they get treatment. Like, how do you feel about that? And I said, I don't care. I don't care if I ever write a song again. Just make this go away. And now I realize that actually you absolutely can write songs and be on medication, and I have, but I was ready to just give it all up. And I think that is that is more common than we would like to think, is that people get to a point where they're unable to keep up with like the industry wants you to be unwell. And if I had, for whatever reason, like done something that got me, on a plane, now I'm in LA, I'm making, like, I could have kept going and I would have not gotten help. It was just the fact that like a couple things went wrong, this tour got canceled, and that I was like, okay, I really need to go get help. But I do think that there are very famous musicians out there who just kept going, and everyone around them is encouraging them, and saying, you're doing a great job, this is amazing, oh, he's just hard to work with, oh, she's just a diva. And then they never end up in the hospital saying, I give up. Anyways, sorry, it's one of my favorite subjects to talk about.
Yeah, and just between me and you, was that Canadian musician Drake?
God, no, I wish. Not that famous of a Canadian musician. Americans wouldn't know him, but he's kind of famous. He's famous to Canadians. Anyways,
all right. It was Ryan Adams. Moving on. Dean, let's bring the question up again. Okay. What are some challenges of working in the music industry while also battling mental health issues?
Oh man. Well, firstly, yeah, that was very powerful. It hit home on a lot of levels. I, it's been this, like I said before, I would love to just put all the blame on the music business. It definitely is at the if there is a gradient, it's at the top somewhere. It is definitely not a good place to be. This is not a good business for anyone who struggles with mental health issues. Um, not just little struggles, but real struggles that get in the way of survival and the will to live. This is not what you want to do. You want to really, really heal first, or check yourself thoroughly internally before getting involved in a field like this, or any art form, any business that is based on the arts. um, I It's been a slow, like I had said before, a slow decline into this thing that it seems like, more than anything else, more than the business being designed to hold certain people down or anything like that, the arts, and especially music, more than any other art form, seems to uh, function from this sort of global popularity game that the world doesn't realize it's in. That's, most of the world doesn't realize it. I think there are some who are very keen on it and accept it, or reject it, whatever. But overall awareness that that's all that's going on here doesn't seem to be quite so present. I've been just as plagued by being around people who talk up a storm about other artists all the time and never anything about myself, as I am about not enough people buying something that I spent years to create and just went ignored. Um, all of the experiences like that have led to this kind of dread, just the overall feeling that seems to accompany, when you're in the arts for sincere reasons, and not just to make money, or not just to feed a machine or feed a popularity game. uh, it's really, really a struggle, because people don't think in terms of. I think people are still either thinking very traditionally about music, like it's a business like anything else. So you get paid with money. That's the way that goes. And it's just, maybe it was true at one time, but it's definitely no longer true. We get paid in respect and recognition, and like just a compliment is our currency most of the time. We have to do other forms of work most of the time to really pay the bills, to literally pay the bills.
Yeah, and one of the
Unless
worst things though is for if you're beholden to a contract and you have to produce, that's got to be just the worst for anxiety and just like, am I just doing this because I have to? Is it even going to be my best work? Like, I can't wait to get this over with. Like, if you had experiences like that,
Very good point. And now that you mention that, I would not be the authority enough to be able to speak to that, because I've successfully dodged that responsibility all my life. I've stayed clear of exclusivity contracts just for that reason, because of all the horror stories that have followed that whole thing. If the right exclusivity contract came along, I'm not saying I wouldn't sign it, at this point anyway. But I've been presented with them early in life, and sometimes it's hard for me to figure out if that was for the better or for the worse, because the popularity I would have gained from signing with a bigger label like that might have been significant, and it would have helped all the other endeavors. But it might have been at the cost of what you're talking about. So it's hard to
right?
say.
All right. Well, let's hear from Kev now. But your experiences with the music industry.
I started in the music industry when I was in my teens, and through most of my life, I would get to a certain level, and I would get overwhelmed, and then drop out of the scene. And I did that until I was 35. um, Having to do a lot of singer songwriters, anyways, have to do a lot of different jobs, and you have to do marketing, promoting, budgeting, Kickstarter things and videos and release content, and that would overwhelm me. When I was actively didn't know I had a mental illness, I would just thought I was made incorrectly. When I was finally diagnosed, and which was 15 years ago, I started looking at my music career in a different way. And now I've built a support system of other artists and musicians who we meet and help co-regulate each other's nervous system, and we talk about the industry and kind of mentor each other. So I'm able to continue doing it without getting overwhelmed. But the music industry, if you're living with mental illness, many of us, I think, could say we've had self-esteem problems in the past, and the music industry is like a hammer on your self-esteem. So that's something that just being a musician or any type of artist, you're the tree and you're putting your apples out there, and some people are saying it's great and some people are saying it sucks, and it can be tough on your self-esteem. The music industry also it's hard to create a routine. I live and recover better on a routine that revolves around recovery, and that does not mesh with the non-routine of a music career. So there's a lot of clashing that goes on there. And then lastly, we were talking about where your passion becomes madness. When you're working on a project, and for me anyways, I limit my time now on how long I work on things, because I will hyper focus and go manic very easily if I'm involved in a project. And I used to believe that as an artist we have to do that to get the good art. We have to torture ourselves. And I really learned the lesson, by bouncing in and out of hospitals, that to try to write a song, that's not the way to go. And I found my best work since doing that. To me, madness is passion without safety restrictions, and it's a very dangerous thing. So someone was talking about that before. So yeah, the music industry is very difficult. Even in recovery, and you're doing everything right in recovery, the music industry can still beat the hell out of you. So.
Yeah, and I can definitely, as a non-musician, I can definitely relate to the whole mania and artistic output. Like if I've got to be manic in order to be my most creative, and if I'm depressed, I can't ever be productive and creative. And so, yeah, I can definitely relate to that part. So thank you all to people who have shared that experience. Let's move on to Kevin.
I would say that the two things I think about, the first thing I would think about would be age. I think that unlike sports or something where your body deteriorates as you get older, music is something where hopefully you're gaining more knowledge as you get older and getting better at it. But as opposed to the music industry, which is hyper focused on youth and very, very much interested in what youth are doing, as opposed to what older musicians who may have learned a couple things down the road are learning. I think that's a difficulty that you experience in the music industry. Another difficulty, I think, is the algorithm. I think everybody falls victim to this, trying to use the algorithm to your advantage. I've heard that there are 100,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day. I don't know who listens to all of those songs, but it's very difficult to kind of build a fan base when the attention spans are so short and there's so much material out there. When Sarah was talking, I immediately started thinking about Kanye West and his mental health difficulties, which have taken a rather dark turn recently. And I'm not going to comment on him as an individual because I don't know him personally, but I was rooting for him at one point because I thought he could be a great mental health advocate. and to see him take the dark turn he's taken, I'm very saddened to see that. But it shows that things are not always what they seem. You may reach a certain height within the industry, but at what price are you paying to get to that height? So for me, I make the music on my own schedule. I release it myself. I do a lot of the promotion, the artwork, the mixing, mastering, stuff like that. And if it becomes in opposition to my mental health, I'm going to stop doing it. But it's been the opposite of that. It's been very helpful for my mental health. So I keep doing it.
Awesome. And I know you got to leave right at the top of the hour. And so I want to make sure that you have time to get in your final thoughts. So we'll kind of go a little bit out of order, but just I mean, obviously you could stay as long as you want, but I want to make sure you can get your final words in. So just take this time now, just any other like things that you didn't get a chance to mention, and also make sure to close with how people can stay in touch with you, social media, website, and we have your website in the description, but we can put any other links as well, so people can definitely buy your new album. So take it away.
Okay. Well, I would say that I've definitely experienced periods in my life where I've been manic, and it's led to great creation, and periods where I think the work I'm making is just unparalleled and wonderful, and it's like I'm channeling God or something. But sometimes you look back at the music and it doesn't stand up to the delusions you had when you were manic. Luckily, I'm medicated now, and originally I thought it hindered my artistic ability, but I've learned other things as I've gotten older, other tricks and practices within my method to develop my own style. As far as keeping in touch with me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at the hashtag at Bird Boogie, BirdBoogie. And my website is getthatworm.com. I always tell people, if you want music, go to getthatworm.com. If you want bait and tackle, you can go to gettheworm.com. So I try to make that distinction, because some people look for me and they find the bait and tackle shop. And another thing, if you put my name in search engines, you got to remember there's an E before the Y. So a lot of people spell it without the E before the Y, and there's other artists or other avenues that takes you down if you spell the name incorrectly.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on this panel. And just remember, if you have to leave before the show is over, strike a cool pose, because it'll freeze frame when you log off, and you don't want to be stuck in some weird blurry like that. Okay, so I have not forgotten about
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, Kevin. I have not forgotten about you, Janine. So I have a special question just for you, and that question is what are the therapeutic benefits of music performance? How can it benefit people in distress?
Wow. So those are two entirely different questions, right? So when I think of how music impacts people in distress, anyone having any kind of symptoms or any kind of crisis, I look at music as the ultimate form of disassociation, right? You know, when we think of people when they disassociate, we often think of it as a response to trauma, but we as people disassociate all day, every day. That's kind of the concept of daydreaming. Like if you're driving your car somewhere and you're going to the grocery store or to work or wherever, so you kind of go often, and then you get there and you're like, wait, how did I get there? You don't even have any recollection. That's a form of disassociation. And music allows us to do that. It has like transportative effects in some ways. It takes us from one place to another, and it does that like mentally. It takes us through time. So in acting, there's the concept of sense memory, where we, recall an emotional experience and the physical feelings that we have, but there's also the emotional memory, right? We recall an emotional experience and then all the feelings that come with it. And music allows us to do both, right? When I was talking before about like I'm transported back into the 90s, that's what music does. It can take us, from how we're feeling right now, and we hear a song that brings us great joy, or a song that connects us to another person, good memories, bad memories, whatever it may be. And so that's kind of why we have to choose wisely when we're, kind of on edge or not feeling right. It's because if you hear a song that is a sadder song and you're not feeling right, it's just going to make you that much sadder. So you kind of have to counteract that with a little bit more positive stuff. So I like to listen to like fun music, or music that will make me laugh, like The Lonely Island. They're absolutely ridiculous. But their songs can make me laugh even when I'm just feeling just absolutely stressed or terrible. And it's interesting because, and I hate to sound cliche, but music is the universal language, as they say, right? We all could speak different languages. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different interests and different styles of music that we like, but we can all hear the same song and it can evoke an emotional response from us, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, it's happy or sad. And we can hear the same song and have the same emotional response. Or I can hear a piece of music and it can make me remember really good times. And then someone else could hear it and it's like, oh, that was a song of a family member who passed, and it makes them sad. So, it has different ways to impact our mind. And that's why I think it's so effective. I mean, like, they use it not just for mental health, but they use it in hospitals. They use it with cancer patients. They use it in schools to help reduce bullying and such. They use it in physical therapy. If you think about sports people, right? They'll say they work out to this song. People who exercise, they're always listening to music, right? To get themselves going. Kind of the and we don't have this in movies anymore like we used to back in I'm making myself sound like I'm 90, but back in the 80s, we had great soundtracks. Think of Eye of the Tiger, right? You hear that song, you're automatically thinking Rocky. You're thinking him, running up, the stairs and gonna fly now, and he has that song,
Punching meat.
Da, da, da. Yeah, that kind of experience, and it brings, like, that energy helps motivate people. It even has impact on people who have dementia and Alzheimer's. And I sometimes will have a dementia patient come in and they can't recall anything. They can't recall where they live. And then I have to try and find out who these people are. But they'll hear a song and they can sing all the words to it. And a song that they heard back in, the 1940s or the 1950s, and they can still remember those lyrics, but couldn't tell you their address or phone number or the name of a loved one. So it really, affects the mind. It can make you fall asleep. That's why we have lullabies. It can lower your blood pressure. And so it really, and there's so much more to it. If I had hours, I could explain all, like, how the neural pathways work and how music affects it. But I want to get back to the other part about performance, because that's the tricky part. Now, Rudy, I have to tell you, I'm not in the music industry now, but I spent many years as a music agent. So I worked on the other side, and I chose to no longer be in that field because it made me love music less. And being on that side, being on the negotiation side, being on the business side, I didn't ever want music to be a chore for me. I always wanted to love music. And that's why I chose not to go into performance, because I didn't want that. I'm so hypercritical. And I think a lot of people are like that. And music performance can be really good for me and it can be really bad for me. I can go into, a performance and I'll still sing publicly here and there. And in my mind, I'm like, I didn't hit that note right. I kind of messed up those words. That didn't sound great to me. And I'm very hard on myself. And then I walk out and people are like, oh my God, that was amazing. You brought me so much happiness. I once had a woman stop me in the bathroom telling me I sound like Trisha Yearwood and how happy it made her. I don't sound anything like Trisha Yearwood. But you see, it has both sides. I was down on myself feeling like, oh, this wasn't great. And sometimes we are very hypercritical, and then it has the opposite effect on somebody else. So that's kind of that double-edged sword. And so when you're a performer, it can be tricky. It can be really hard. You have to learn that balance as to say, okay, you know what? It's just one performance. I remember Idina Menzel, who sings the movie Frozen, and she sang "Let It Go," and she cracked a note at a performance, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, she cracked a note!" And her response was, "I cracked one note out of 100,000 notes I have sung in my life, and it's okay." And I have to always keep that in my mind. Yeah, one note we mess up out of all the hundreds of thousand notes we perform. So that's something to keep in the back of our minds.
All right. Thank you, Janine. Real quickly, can you do the Natalie Portman rap from Lonely Island?
Yep. Nope. Hard pass.
All right. I thought I can get you there. Okay, so I think we're about time to wrap up. I had another question, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and you pretty much answered it in your own words anyway. So, Dean, are you able to flip your phone backwards, and because like you're coming in like weird?
Let me.
There
Can
you
you
go.
hear me?
Yeah, just flip your phone backwards and then again, just because you're coming in like the wrong angle. And while
Right.
Dean's doing that, I want to make sure that we can get into final thoughts. And while you have time to collect your thoughts, I'm going to go with Janine first again, just the way it's set up. But just think about anything that you want to mention that you didn't get a chance, or respond to something that another panelist said. Obviously, make sure to promote yourself, give the shout outs to social media, give shout outs to anyone else you want to, say hi to your mom or dad or whatever. Any resources you want to shout out, the floor is yours. Take it away. Let's go back to Janine.
I love doing this. I love talking about music. It makes my heart so happy. I could do it all day, every day. And you know what? That's the beautiful thing about music. There's all different styles, all different genres. There's something out there for everyone. And that's the best part. Therapy might not be the thing for someone, medication not be the thing for everyone. Everyone likes something when it comes to music. And I think that is so important, and it can really help you. And that's one of the ultimate coping mechanisms that we talk about all the time, right? If you can't, get past something, put on a song, rock out, enjoy yourself, try something, try listening to something, and see how it'll help you. And, I've been doing this a while. I'm at whereisthesunshine.com. I'm at Yes You Shine on Twitter and Instagram. I'm more active on Twitter, just because, the conversation there is constantly going. You can always reach out to me directly. And Rudy, anytime, any place, we need to have like a movie and mental health conversation.
There we go. I know you would kill it on the Star Wars trivia.
I would.
All right. Thank you, Janine, for being here. I know you're a busy person. You got a lot of things going on, but I appreciate you being on here. Just hang tight, and then we'll go on to our next panelist, and then we'll do a sign off at the end. So, final thoughts, Sarah Jickling.
Yeah, well, so this is something I just think about constantly. So if anyone wants to, chat with me about it, please do. I'm at sarah.jickling on all of the social networks, and my music is also under that name, Sarah Jickling and Her Good Bad Luck. If you want to listen to my music, I have a new song that's about to come out, and I'm just like extremely tired of the music industry. So if anyone has any ideas about how I should release my song, I'm very much open to have that conversation. But I would say that one thing I'm thinking of is maybe creating a little online group or something for people who want to get creative while taking medication, because like Kevin said, there are tricks and there are different ways of getting creative, and you can do it. So if anyone's out there and thinks like, I can't create when I'm well, uh, you can. There are ways to do it. It's just a little bit harder, but it's easier on the rest of your life. And the other thing I will say is like music is everywhere. I work in the dance industry as well. Everybody dances to music. Movies would be weird without music. Like people listen to music constantly. And so I am a little bit concerned about the sort of the current structure of the music industry, especially after the pandemic, when like so many musicians lost their main source of income, which is shows. So I don't know if you're out there and you're like, I really like this musician and I listen to them on Spotify all the time. Just know that they absolutely do not get paid anything from Spotify. So if you like them, maybe like send them like buy their album on Bandcamp or something, because absolutely like it feels there's just something about like spending many years of your life and thousands of dollars writing an album and then putting it out there and you get nothing back. Whereas like if I could sell a PDF, an ebook online about and people would pay $20 for it. So it's the music industry is extremely weird right now. So I don't know. Watch out for your musician friends and make sure they're okay.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm definitely always supportive of you and your work. And
Yeah,
I'm
you're
glad
amazing. Thank you.
glad that you're doing okay. I'm glad that you're on here talking about what you're passionate about most. I think our panelists are starting to drop like flies. So, Dean, are you still there?
Can you hear me?
Cool. Let's. Yeah, I think you're like flipped up. Okay, let's try to salvage this. There you go. I think you're frozen, but just just start talking.
Yeah.
Just do your final thoughts. Yeah, I think your internet connection is just a little slow.
I guess the connection.
Yeah, you're starting to break up. Let's move to Kev, and then we'll try to give you one more shot. So hang tight, Dean. Let me give Kev a shot. All right, let's meet Dean. All right, Kev, final thoughts.
Well, first of all, it's been great. Thank you for having me on here. I use music when I go out and I tell my story. And the music helps tell the story because it creates an experience where they can feel what I was feeling at the time in my story. So if I'm talking about my childhood trauma and I would sing a song that would have the audience feel the moment a little more. And then as what's been talked about before, throughout my day I use music to adjust my moods and stuff, to raise it up in the morning, because I'm usually kind of digging myself out of a hole, so music helps me bring it up to a nice level. You can find me, I have an album, Kev G. Moore Live at Linden Tree. It's on all the platforms. I do a lot on Instagram and YouTube, where I vlog and post about living with schizophrenia, bipolar, CPTSD, and ADD. And yeah, I had a great time. So thank you.
What's your Instagram handle?
It's Kev G Moore, KEVGMOR.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You can find me just everywhere.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you're able to share your truth with the world, and that hopefully we get to collaborate again in the future. Let's try to give Dean one more shot. Dean, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Just start talking.
Okay. Well, I feel like I do kind of want to appeal to listeners and lovers of music who are not musicians, not aspiring, not ambitious in that way. To some degree, yeah, I mean, the game has significantly changed for us. And ever since the pandemic, it's undoubtedly in an unsatisfactory way. we were already struggling with existential issues and financial issues and rights issues, and the pandemic has not broadened our opportunities or helped. It's just made things more complicated and constricted, and anything we were suffering from before, especially self-worth issues, is tenfold now. So I would like to just appeal to listeners. I know that music is like a very personal thing for us. And when we like something or love something that has aesthetic value like music, it just feels like everything else shouldn't exist. And we get really adamant about that. And I want to just, maybe it's falling on deaf ears, I don't know, but I would like to just ask that people try to be as selfless minded as possible when it comes to just showing a musician that you love or respect, at the very least respect what they do, by just letting them know you respect what they do as regularly as you can muster up the bravery for, because it's an internal struggle more than people know who are outside of the arts. And it's kind of like, it's soldiering in a way, and in a good way, because it's non-destructive soldiering. And we're plowing through a lot of adversity, a lot of obstacles to continue creating in public. And it just deserves, recognition from the people in our lives, even more than from, the strangers and the masses who may never see or experience our work. There's so much more I'd like to say. I just, maybe during another panel. I don't want to take up too much time here. As far as checking out what my work and staying abridged to my other forms of, I actually dabble in other forms of art, video, and I'm doing filmmaking a little more now. You could just look my name up. I'll just spell it for you. It's Dean, Dean De Benedictis, which is DE space BENEDICTIS, and that's why I get tongue tied. So yeah, look it up, Google me, so to speak, and go to my social networks, and if you're there, say hi, leave likes as much as you can. Social networks definitely mess with us internally more than people understand. It's not simple for us, like, hey, I just posted something. It's like it goes deep for us because we're creating, wearing our heart on our sleeve out there. So if you do look me up on there, try to make a decision to be supportive. Otherwise, it's okay. Just look me up, look my work up, and that's just as good.
Thank you, Dean. Glad that we're able to salvage that, and you're able to end with us.
Awesome.
Quick shout out to Rihanna Brand, who's watching on YouTube. Just wanted to give her a shout out. She just says, "Hi y'all, thanks for sharing. One of my favorite songs to listen to when I'm struggling is Sasha Sloan. Keep on, relatable. Anyone know that one? Okay." But I'm sure it is a lovely one. Thank you so much, Rihanna. I'm glad you were on last week, and hope to have you on again in the future. And that's going to do it for this week. Thank you, Janine, who had to leave early. Thank you to Kevin, who also had to leave early. And thank you to Sarah Jickling, Dean De Benedictis, to Kev G. Moore. All the links to their work and how to support them are in the YouTube description. Thank you so much to everyone who's shown support to this YouTube channel. I appreciate that. Keep liking and subscribing if you enjoy this content and want to see more of it. That's the best way to signal it. Okay, so again, my name's Rudy Caseres. Go check out more of me and my work at rudycaceres.com. You can also find me on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter at Rudy Caseres. That's going to do it for this week. I'll be back again in 2 weeks from now, Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. And since I'm so bad at sign-offs, I'm going to give the honor to our newbie, Kev. Just any sign-off that you want. Do your news anchor, inspirational speaker impression, anything you want.
Oh boy. Thanks for watching The Mind, and see you next time.
Was I supposed to be? What? Hey,
Thank you all.
thanks for listening.
Thank you all.
Wow.
Goodbye.
Yeah, that was fun.
Bye, guys.